All right, folks, do something a little bit different today. This is my spare Sniper 2300. This is the unit that I had on the Mustang, if you follow it, since August. It is the second unit that I purchased. This was a refurb unit that I bought when I thought I had a problem with my first Sniper, and it wasn't at all. It was because of the exhaust leak that we had in the modified head. Long story short, thought it would be a good idea to have a spare unit anyways. I have yet to own a fuel injection unit that I didn't have a problem with. Sniper's not the only one. I spent a lot of time working on the Phytech stuff in the past. They do have issues. So I thought it'd be a good idea to have a spare. Anyways, I bought it as a refurb. It's been on there since August, and I don't think I covered this in any other videos. I went out to start it one day to move it, and no spark. Reloaded the tune, came back, fired right up. Thought, well, that's kind of weird. Thought it might be, a voltage spike or something. Maybe when, low battery when it was cold. Those kinds of things. Transient, they call them transients. Transient voltage could make it lose its tune. Whatever. Anyways, reloaded. It was fine for a day. Didn't work the next morning. Same thing. No spark. That's pretty easy diagnosis, by the way. Just pull the coil wire off, and I could see the spark. There was no spark firing, so I put my spare unit on, loaded the tune, and voila, ran fine. That's the original unit that I had that was brand new. So I called Holley, and they said send it in. That was pretty much a short conversation when I told them I carry two units and the other unit works. Sent it in, just got it back this morning, and I haven't tested it yet or powered it up, but I did talk to one of the techs on the Holley Sniper forum on Facebook, and he was kind enough to reach out to me. I posted that I had just got it back. He reached out to me and said, hey, I just checked, just so you know, we put a new ECU in it. It had no points output, which I assume is, no spark points output, which I run a Hyperspark, full Hyperspark system, and that obviously has something to do with no points output. I'm guessing it means when he says no points output, I'm assuming it means it has no tach signal, which it's got to have that. Anyways, rambled long enough about that. One of the things that happened when I put my spare unit on was it'd been kicking around the garage for a while before I threw it in the trunk of the car, and fired it up. Noticed right away I only had one injector. It wasn't running right. So, okay, all right, got a dead injector. I popped that unit open. When I popped that unit open, which is a very common thing, one of the injector connectors was loose. So there is a fix for that, and I'm going to go through that right now. I'm going to open up this unit, and I'm going to show you a real quick and dirty way to fix that. So let's get into it. You get yourself a 3/16. By the way, this is for a 2300. The 4150 units, or the Holley 4-barrel units, the ones that are common. I'm not exactly sure how you take the injector covers off. It's probably very similar. I just don't know those units. On the 2300, though, look at the other unit. If you got a 4-barrel, I'm sure it's very easy to figure it out. In this case, it is a 3/16 Allen. We're going to go ahead and pop these off. You can see there's just two of them. So crack them loose. These do have Loctite on them. I noticed on the other one when I pulled it apart. And then carefully, kind of hold it, keep it from moving around as you take the bolts out. You want to very carefully pull this out, and that's because the injectors have rubber O-rings on them, or I'm sure they're Viton O-rings, and you don't want to tear them because then you're going to have to replace them. I don't know what size they are. They are reusable unless they're very old. They should be reusable. This is a 2-injector 2300, by the way. The Super Sniper is going to have 4. I'll show you where the bosses are in here for it. Kind of lift it up at an angle because the injectors do sit in here as an angle. So I'm going to pull it up this way, kind of out towards the camera right now. All right, and as you can see, one of them stayed in here in the throttle body, and one of them stayed in the fuel rail. So no big deal. Anyways, it did say they flow tested these injectors too, which is good, but Yeah, the O-rings still look okay. But inside here, let's scoot it in just a little bit. In here you can see here's the one injector, here's the other. The other injector is obviously still in here. Here's where the other two would be if it was a Super Sniper. It would be ported right here for 4 injectors. Same thing with the fuel rail in here. You can see there's non-ported bosses in here. To make this a little bit easier, I'm going to pull this injector out of the fuel rail, separate it. Smells like it's probably fuel. They did test the unit. I was told by the tech that they tested it. So I'm just going to make sure that this is in here. Because I'm going to do it doesn't really matter. You can take them completely out. It might be easier. Actually, before I slide this all the way in here, let me show you what goes on with these. Very common issue here. You can see this is the clip. This is the connector, right? I don't know if it's because they use a cheap connector or what, but this is pushed all the way in. And see how this is not seated all the way right here? It's sitting up. That's why it doesn't stay connected. See how easy this comes out? It's just not a great, it's just not a great design, and it doesn't really positively click on here. So real simply, we're going to push it on there, get it in there good and solid, and then I'm just going to take and put a tie wrap around it here. So let me go get some small tie wraps. Alright, just grabbed a couple of small zip ties, tie wraps, whatever you want to call them. Let me widen this just a little bit so you can see here. And if I didn't mention it before, the reason I'm doing this is because obviously the other one loosened up. It's a common issue if you look on the Holley forums. That's how I knew about it. So anyways, all we're simply going to do here is make sure it's seated all the way, and it is, and it's actually clicked all the way in here. All I'm going to do is take a zip tie and just put it around the clip. Hopefully it's in frame and you can see it. And I'm doing it, as you can see right here, I'm doing it at a 90-degree angle just so it kind of perfectly locks right in there. That keeps that cheap connector clip from coming up and unlocking. So I'm just going to pull on it a little bit just to make sure it's tight, and then you just clip it nice and close. That's all you got to do. That's what I did with the other one, just because that's all it was wrong with it. I didn't have a dead injector, it just was loose. So make sure there's no dirt in here. This is all still pretty wet, which is fine. I don't know if they pulled it apart and they lube these up. This feels like it's got a little bit of lube on it. You don't want to put these O-rings in dry. It will destroy them. This one, it's already seated in there. I'm just going to leave it alone. And be very careful when you're doing this. Don't get any dirt in anything if you can avoid it. You really don't want to do that. If you get some crap into the injector, that's it. And you'll be having a bad day. So I know this one's still seated all the way. I can see the clip on this one actually looks like it's in pretty decent shape compared to the other one. It's still seated. It hasn't warped or anything. I don't know if the heat gets to them or what happens, but it does seem to kind of curl up and away. It curls up instead of staying locked down into the injector. I'm just going to grab it, get a couple extra clicks out of it. That's it. That's going to stay on there forever now. I'm not exactly sure how this is supposed to. Probably doesn't really matter all that much. What you do want to make sure of is that you've got the injector, the wire. You want to make sure that this is in this channel down here. Do not pinch that when you put it back together. And come to think of it, when they replaced the ECU, they would have replaced this harness in here. So those are obviously crappy, and it hasn't even been run yet. So just make sure this is down in here, pretty decent. Make sure there's no dirt in the fuel rail or anything. And we're just gonna line the injectors up. It's hard for you; you won't be able to see it, but I'm looking down in here to see where the injectors are, and just going to very carefully push this down into the fuel rail. It's fighting me a little bit here. Make sure that we're... I think when I did it before, I think I put the injectors in the fuel rail first. And that seems like it might be a little bit easier, but let's keep fighting it because that's what I do. All right, I don't want to ruin these O-rings. Let's do it this way. Make sure you don't... That zip tie, if you push on it, it'll slide off of there, so just be careful. I thought about adding another one around it the other way, but I didn't want to put pressure on the wire. I didn't want it to be a problem there, but as long as you don't screw with it, it won't come off of there. Yeah, it's interesting. It's definitely tighter going into the fuel rail. Okay, what the heck is going on here? Yeah, they go right into the throttle body, but boy, they don't want to slide into the fuel rail. I wonder if they replaced... Didn't say, the tech didn't say that they had replaced the injectors. I don't know, maybe they threw new seals on here though. Because these O-rings are not playing nice. What's happening is the O-ring is getting caught up. I may have to lube this up just a little bit better than it is. Let me find something that's going to be safe for this. Okay, so I just have some mineral oil here. I'm just going to use just a little bit of that. It's very safe to use on something like this. I use this mineral oil in my smoke testing smoke tester that I have for checking for exhaust leaks and stuff like that. So anyways, all right, I got those lubed. Gotta have it lubed up. Let's see if it wants to go back together, if it's gonna fight me. There we go. Okay, yeah, it went in. It's just being a little bit challenging. Here I am supposed to be making this look easy, which it is. Don't be afraid to do this. It's just, this one's just being a little bit more of a pain in the ass. I think they replaced the seals. But I got them both into the fuel rail now. Well, I had them both in the fuel rail. There. Now it's in. All right, this will go easy now. And just, again, make sure that that wire's not pinched, which it doesn't appear to be. And that's it. It's back in. So all we do now, if you so choose, use some little bit of Loctite on here. It's got these lock washers on here, which is good. I think this is something you don't want coming loose when you're driving, because you'll end up with fuel everywhere, and in my case, right on the exhaust, so that'd be bad. So we're gonna just get a dab of Loctite Blue and put that on there. All right, so just some Loctite 242. This is probably the minimum size. These are probably 1/4 inch. 24, I would guess. So this is the minimum size for 242. Mine might be stuck closed here. The Loctite itself closed. So anyways, here we go. Just put a little bit of this on here. Doesn't take much. Just a little bit. Let's get it started. Don't tighten it down all the way. The other one doesn't take much. I didn't clean the old stuff off because, you know, extra material on there, that's extra locking, right? Extra locking is good. Or I'm just lazy. And then, you know, don't overdo these, but don't, you know, there's no torque spec or anything. Just do it by feel. Don't, you know, half a turn before it strips out. It's pretty good. It's nice and tight. Click. Click. That's it. Nice and tight. And by the way, they had this off from the factory. It obviously had Loctite on it. They had to have it off to replace the ECU because the harness is all integral to it, and they didn't put Loctite back on it. So there you go. That's how it's serviced. All right. So anyways, that should be a pretty quick one here. Just wanted to go over, you know, somebody had asked a question, what do you do to keep the injector connectors from coming loose? They're the same injector connectors on the 4-barrel versus the 2-barrel, and probably the 1100, although I never had my 1100 apart. I imagine it's the same. It's probably the same injector. This is two 100 pound/hour injectors. I believe the Autolite 1100's got 100 pound/hour, and I think depending on if you have a Super Sniper or a standard one, I think there's either 4 or 8 injectors on the 4-barrel. Of course, the 2-barrel would have 4 injectors for the Super Sniper. So anyways, that's just a quick one on the Holley Sniper and securing your injector connectors.